open data office hours will be available for people to access beyond this event. If you have any questions during this meeting, feel free to put them in the chat. We're also going to have a live Q&A with a tool we called Slido, which was shared out in the information. And feel free to post questions throughout the event in that link, which I will share in one moment on the screen. And then maybe, Inej, you can throw it in the chat. So, all right, we are not recording, are we?
No, you are recording. It
Okay.
said that it was recording.
Oh, great. Okay. We are recording. So welcome to BetaNYC's New York City Open Data Learning Series for Council. Today is August 24th, and we are going to be having a live Q&A and talking about open data with you. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to getting started. We are BetaNYC. We do a lot of work with open data, and we're excited to introduce people to open data throughout the city, including council. Today, we are going to have a very short icebreaker just to say hello, introduce ourselves, and talk about briefly open data. We will then do a quick overview about BetaNYC, since many of you are very familiar with us, and then go through a few commonly asked questions about open data, and then hear from you and hear any questions you have about open data. Then we'll end around just shortly after 1, and at that point, if you have any further questions that you want to ask one-on-one, we're going to hang around for another 15 minutes to answer them. So some virtual meeting norms, you're probably all familiar with them at this point, but mute when other people are presenting. When you have a question or want to clarify a question, put it in the chat or on the Slido, and or raise your hand and we'll call on you and you can come off mute. Video's on if you're comfortable with it, and we're recording. So you'll see at the bottom of the screen the bit.ly, bit.ly/askopendata. That's where you can submit any questions, and we'll be going through them later and answering them in real time. So submit questions there. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Noel, if you want to just introduce yourself quickly.
Hello, my name is Noel or Noel. He, him are my pronouns. I'm the executive director here at BetaNYC, and a huge fan of open data and open government.
Cool. Inej.
Hey everybody, my name is Inej James. I'm a Civic Innovation Apprentice here at BetaNYC, and my pronouns are she, her, and welcome.
Awesome. And I'm Kate, she, her, and a director of partnerships and events here at BetaNYC, and big fan of open data.
Hey, I'm just gonna pop in. I'm Z. I use my pronouns are he, him. I'm calling from a train station since I love transit so much. Hey all.
Choo-choo! Thanks for joining, Z. And then 2 others who aren't with us today, but you've probably met and will be teaching, have taught classes, and will be teaching are Emily and Gabby, who are working on other things today. So just quickly, I think we can just break out into 2 rooms. What do you all say? Well, actually, let's just quickly go around the room. Yeah, I think just this room is fine. Just quickly, if you want to come off mute one at a time, who you are, why you're here, and if you have an open data set that you're really interested in using, or a topic that you're really interested in exploring around open data, we'd love to hear. So I'm just going to call on people, and I see Kate Mooney. I see you. So why don't you start us off?
Oh, hello, everyone. Hi, Kate. Hi, Noel. Well, Kate Mooney, Deputy Chief of Staff from Councilmember Adrienne Adams. I've been intrigued with BetaNYC from the very first training they did several years back. And I just wish I was really handy with it. But I'm here to learn and delighted that you're offering these trainings. Thank you.
Great. Tanya, if you're there.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. My name is Tanya Paget. I'm the Director of Communications for Councilmember Barry Grodenchik. Before this role, like in another time far, far away. I used to be a reporter, so I remember when this information, you could only get it by, I think it's like FOIL. The fact that it's open to so many people and us is fantastic. I'm here to learn as much as I can. And also, could somebody send me the link or the decks from the last meeting? I haven't gotten those yet. And I need to like go over this stuff again and again because I'm actually data phobic, but I know it's the future, it's the now. So that would be great. I'll put my information in the chat. Thanks.
And I just want to, yeah, absolutely, we will. If you put the email in the chat, sorry you weren't on our list. If I mute, can I just do a quick test? If I mute here. Okay, no, we just have two, we're calling in, we have a lot of different tech things we're playing around with. So awesome, that's great to hear. Next person, I see your picture. You have glasses on and you have your hand by your face, but I don't see your name, so.
I guess that's me.
Now I can see you, yes.
Well, hi, my name is actually Yogi. Hi, many people that are here already spoken to at a certain point. I work for the council. I actually manage council stat, which is one of the data sets posted on the open data portal. And I decided today that I wanted to take a chance and be a student, and take a seat as a student over here. Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome. Terrific. Kwan?
Hello, my name is Kwan, and I am part of the council finance team. I am a financial analyst who oversees the city council's discretionary funding. So today I'm here very happy to learn about all the database, what I could be able to export from the data and what type of information would be in the data.
Terrific, welcome. Cora?
Hi, it's Cora from Councilmember Margaret Chin's office, City Council District 1 in Lower Manhattan. I'm coming back for my second round because there's a lot of information to absorb, but I do notice that all the tools that you showed us last time, they're really, really useful. Unlike the other colleague who just spoke earlier, there's so much to just listen. I'm trying to brainwash myself with the wonderful tools that you offer us and that you built. Thank you so much.
That's so great to hear. Yeah, that's our strategy. Throw lots of information out at you and see what catches and how you want to, what you want to learn more about. Thank you. Welcome. Irene. You're there. It's nice to see you. Maybe Irene stepped away. All right. Well, hey, Isabel. Welcome.
Hi all, good morning, or I guess good afternoon. Isabel Chandler. I'm on Councilmember Carlina Rivera's team, Council District 2, and I'm really excited to be here and to refresh and relearn some of the tools that are so useful in serving our constituency.
Welcome, it's nice to see you. Hey, Sebastian.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sebastian McGuire from Councilmember Daniel Drum's office. Councilmember Drum has led the way around city demographic data collection. So I'm here because I have a few questions about how best to access city collected demographic data.
Awesome, welcome. I see Councilmember Rosenthal or someone from your office. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josephine Luna, and I am a constituent service liaison for Councilmember Helen Rosenthal, and I am here to be introduced. Thank you, and have a great day.
Awesome, welcome. We hope you are introduced to open data. That's why we're here. Moving on to Cassie.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Casey Gordon. I'm with the Office of Councilmember Idenique Miller for the 27 Council District. I'm here because I am new to the council and I'm a student, like someone said before me, and I just want to learn as much as I can, especially about open data. Thank you.
Terrific. Welcome, Casey. And I see Cora again, so I won't call on you again. And then I see Luis. Luis, if you're, okay, great.
Hi, I am also along with Josephine, along with Councilmember Helen Rosenthal's office, and I do have several questions as soon as we're able to ask the questions for the open data sets.
Awesome. Well, we hope we can answer them all. And welcome. I think that's everybody. So welcome everybody. And we are going to continue to get started. I guess, yeah, 1 second. All right. So many of you already know this, but we're a civic organization, and our mission is to improve the lives of New Yorkers through civic tech, design, and open data. And we support the city in achieving digital literacy and open data for all through a series of programs, from events and a fellowship and apprenticeship program, and building tools in our civic innovation lab, and offering a free service for government offices and community-based organizations called Radar. And our goal is to build a civic tech talent and career pipeline, contribute to research and tools in New York City, and engage the public. Today we're here to talk about open data. As many of you know, open data is run and managed by the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics. And the sort of technology and the infrastructure is also managed and run by DoIT. And so open data is a great resource. We've had it for 10 years since, is it 10 years? 10 years? 10 years since the law passed.
Correct, but it's been 12 years since the city has had an open data portal that people can access information. Since it started off as a lonely web page with a listing of Excel spreadsheets.
Yes, so 10 plus years. And the objective of open data is to help the city deliver services more equitably and efficiently by making information available between city agencies and the public, and hopefully have more transparency and more equity in how the city is working. So we love open data. You can see, this is a slide that we have from the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, where you can see that open data is all around us. Walking down the street, you can see all different types of data. So you see the Department of Sanitation in the garbage bin. There's a data set that's all about recycling bins and their locations. You can see the Department of Transportation has data sets about street paving. It's a data set all about the street paving ratings and how good they are. So what else is in here? There's the Department of Buildings complaints, the number of complaints that have been resolved. We like to point this out because there's so many different types of data sets that you can access, which can be overwhelming, I think, for many, and that's why we're here, to help sort of point them out and show how people have already built things so you can use the data, and show you how you can build things to use while using the data. So the Open Data Portal is at this website, opendata.cityofnewyork.us. And on the website, you'll find a project gallery, which is super useful, and you may even recognize some projects that we've worked on and built. And then you can see some others from other advocacy organizations and sort of civic hackers who've built really awesome tools, like Sidewalk Width NYC is all about how much space the sidewalk takes up on the street. So it just basically is measuring all the sidewalk width and analyzing the sidewalk width all across the city to sort of look at the ability of pedestrians to practice social distancing during the pandemic. And that was created by Melanie Harvey. Melly Harvey, a great ally, a friend of BetaNYC. And Crash Mapper is another tool where you can check out all the different crashes, for instance, and the different types of crashes, or analyze the different facets of the crash. Was it a vehicle, a pedestrian, a bicyclist? And you can see different and sort it by time and analyze it in different ways. Boundaries Map is an example of a tool that BetaNYC built to help people see all the different political boundaries around New York City. And we recently updated it to show, with adding a few different news layers, like zip codes, is it? Or,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So project gallery is there, and I know they're always accepting new projects and tools, so if you see any that are missing, feel free to let them know. There's also a place on the Open Data Portal website where you can request support, or you can request a data set if you don't see it, or if you're looking for a data set. This is a form that you can use to let them know you're interested in it or you need help with it.
It is also a great form to indicate any problems that you find within the data set. As we all know, this is a massive, massive government, and there are imperfections everywhere. The data is really just a manifestation of us human beings and sometimes our fat fingers. And so if you see errors within the data, please use the contact form to make sure that an agency is made aware of the problems that exist within the data set. As data sets get automatically updated and then kind of like run through batch processing, sometimes they don't update. And this is our as in collective way to ensure that MODA and the agencies are paying attention. And the other thing is being the fact that if you see data sets, if you know of data sets or if you know of reports that are collecting data and they're sending it to you as a spreadsheet, that right there falls under the framework of the city's open data law. So if you want to make sure that that data is accessible to your allies, to advocacy organizations, to the general public, put in a note because you have an inside view on data that agencies might be sharing, and that should be accessible to the general public. So if you see something, say something is our municipal motto, and this is how you say something back to MODA and the various agencies.
Exactly. So another resource to learn more about open data is the annual report that MODA puts out called the Open Data for All 2020 report. And the last report was last September, and will they be doing another one?
Yep.
Yep, this year. So if you want to learn about how open data has connected New Yorkers in the past, go to the website and download the PDF and check it out. And yeah, without further ado, I think it's time to get into questions. If you go to sli.do/askopendata, which we are going to do, I'm going to quickly close my window and then start presenting with Slido, where we can see. Actually, first, sorry, before we do that, we're going to just go over some commonly asked questions, which I think I said we were going to do. So let me just. So I'm going to play a little quiz game with you both. Here we go.
Woo, quiz time.
Noel, who is responsible for publishing open data?
Agencies are responsible for publishing open data. MODA and DOT are responsible for helping agencies publish that data.
Yes, exactly. And there's open data coordinators at each agency that support that back and forth.
Correct.
Nej, does every New York City agency have open data?
Most of them do, and MODA does help to evaluate and determine which data sets get published.
Yes, correct. So I think nearly all of them do. I don't know, I forget what the nearly, like what the caveat is there. But there's a process that MODA goes through every year to evaluate how an agency is publishing data and making sure that the agency understands how the law applies to them. And they sort of just go through to make sure that, you know, what data do you have that is supposed to be open data? Like, let's make sure it gets published. No, how many open data sets are there?
Well, that's a very interesting question. How do you define an open data set? So the answer to that varies. The open data portal is really a data set of data sets. And so what you find on the open data portal is something that you would look like a spreadsheet, right? That is like what we traditionally call a data set. But sometimes you find data objects on there. So those are like the underlying files that you use to make maps, KMLs. The open data portal also has these things called data lenses. An example of a data lens is all of the call records that come into 311 and where that call has been routed to. So it's a massive data set, right? 311, we tell everybody to call 311 for a number of different things. And there's a data set that essentially documents where that call or service request has been routed. And that is that is a data lens. And so there is a massive, you know, multi-million record data set that has a visualization that's sitting on top of it. And then the open data portal also has a number of different external open data sets. And so these are for agencies or authorities that have kind of like a intersectional relationship with New York City government. And so there you'll find the MTAs linked to the MTA data. You'll find some of the state authority data sets. You'll also find some of the agencies that have decided to host their own data, like the DOT. They host their own data, they maintain their own websites and their own databases, and they list their external data set on the open data portal. So, you know, how many data sets are on the open data portal? It's something like 3,000 plus data sets that are essentially manifesting themselves in one way, shape, or another on the open data portal. But you have to be careful of like, what exactly are you calling a data set? And sometimes there are data sets that only exist on FOIL through the Freedom of Information Act that will not end up on the open data portal. I think like taxi trip data is a data set that is accessible through the Freedom of Information. You have to go to the TLC and give them a hard drive, and they will give you that data. But you may find it on a website, right? Like the TLC has a really great website that shows where yellow, green, and livery car trips are happening throughout the city, but it won't be a data set that you can download from the open data portal.
All right. Is that because of the the sensitive data?
It has been more about the volume of the data. And so there hasn't been an easy way to, initially there wasn't an easy way to put all of that data as it's happening on the open data portal. And then it has also ended up being some issues around security and privacy, and that the TLC has been really concerned about making sure that privacy is protected. And so they have a data product that you can access, but you can't necessarily download it in bulk unless you go in and jump through a few hoops. So.
Cool. For awesome explanation. I'm gonna ask Z now. Is all city data open data? You're there. Hopefully you're changing it.
I'm here, but it's really noisy. I'm trying to read this question. Is all city data open data? No, like some city agencies, I guess, kind of have restricted data, as Noel said, and as you said, Kate, previously, some of this data has sensitive information, so they can't possibly release that data. But you can always try foiling for those data sets.
Correct. Awesome. Thank you. Do you want to answer the next one, or is it too noisy? The next one is, how often are data sets updated on the New York City Open Data Portal?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So each open data set has a metadata page, and on that page, it'll tell you the frequency that the city agency is supposed to update that. It'll tell you more information about the data. There might be like an Excel file, and then it'll also tell you when it was last updated.
Yep. Anyone have any final things to add?
Yeah, there are some, remember, the city's organization and the state's organization of agencies doesn't, means that there are some agencies and authorities that you may think should be on the open data portal but aren't. And so one particular authority to call out particularly is NYCHA. The Housing Authority doesn't share a majority of its data through the open data portal. You'll find some open data sets that relate to NYCHA on the open data portal, but you won't find them in complete. Same thing goes for 311. NYCHA has its own service request system. So in 311, you won't find service request calls for certain quality of life issues within 311. You may see noise, you may see, pothole or broken sidewalk or missing street lamp on the perimeter of a NYCHA development, but you won't actually see things inside of the NYCHA development. And so it's important to, when you start thinking about the data, is to try to find how the city is organized, and you have to kind of reverse engineer your methodology to see whether or not it really is going to be represented on the open data portal. Hopefully that's not too confusing.
So just quick room check. Does anyone have any questions about those answers or further questions?
I have a question. When agencies submit the data sets, who decides what the columns will be? Like, for example, I'm just going to use 311s. Who decides that the column will be a complaint type, a location type, incident address, and so, the status? Who decides those columns?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Is it the agencies?
It is a mixture of, it's like conditional. So 311 actually has gone through an engagement process where they have put out questions to the general public and to their most avid 311 data users and say, what data do you want to see on the open data portal? When they redesigned their database and migrated from their prior system to the current system, they went through and asked their heavy data users, what we could add these columns, and then they sometimes add new columns to the open data set, which is why if you look at 311 data, there's extra columns because we've asked for that data set to be as inclusive as possible, which means that we want it for more than 10 years, and the legacy columns still exist in the data set, even though they're not being populated right now because 311 has changed. Most agencies go through a consulting process with MODA, which is the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, to figure out what is the most useful columns of the data and what data could be added. So if there's an address column, there's a good chance that MODA will suggest in the processing that they will add kind of a lat long or some type of political or administrative geography to it. But normally that's a conversation between MODA and the agency.
Oh, I was just pointing at the owl. I was just reminding you that we're talking into that, but we're good.
So it's a conversation between agency and MODA, and if you know that there are columns that should be added, that contact us form is the best way to engage the question of, can you add more data to this particular data set?
Great. So we have two questions from Kate Mooney. I saw your hand raised first, and then Casey.
Can you
Kate,
tell me
come on up.
quickly, does the Department of Corrections have its incident reports on open source?
I will do a quick search.
We'll get back to you in just a few moments.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Casey, you also have your hand raised.
Yes, I was just wondering if maybe you could, someone could share their screen and give us an example of how to use open data.
Yes, we will be happy to do that. I guess, should we do questions first and then sort of do that right at the end for people that want to stick around? Because we do have some recordings that we can pass along for that, but it'd be great to do some walkthroughs as well.
Yeah. We can do that toward the end, if we could just do some popcorn, more questions. So to Ms. Mooney's question, Department of Corrections has a number of data sets. They have inmate deaths, daily inmates in custody, employment statistics, admissions, discharges, assaults on staff, inmate fights, slashing and stabbing, so burial records. So there are some data sets that were recently updated on the 1st of August. So just type in Department of Corrections in the search box, and those will pop up what's there. And if you can't find what you're looking for, do the contact form or send us a message, and we'll figure out how to help.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kate, I just want to pop in. Can you open a new tab? In the open data platform, you can specify of showing all the agencies that submit their data. And I think that's very useful because sometimes if you type in like Department of Corrections or DOC, like sometimes you can't find the data set. Yeah, Kate, if you can go into the open data portal, the open data platform.
Is it following the tab still?
And then you scroll down. Oops.
Sorry.
You can, there is this, I think it's browse data catalog now. Oh, wait, yeah, it's data sets by agency. If you scroll down a bit more, there's like this sheriff's badge. There you go. Yeah, there's where you can get like a full list of all agencies to submit, and then you can filter down for DOC and get all your data sets.
So we'll pop this link in here. Hopefully that also helps a little bit with Casey's question. Luis, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just want to follow up with the previous conversation we had. I'm not sure if I guess you're able to answer this. Is there a way that we can access, I'm going to use 311 again, the calls as they are receiving it? For example, somebody calls about electric bikes, as we know is more popular now. Do they see the same category as we see it on the data sets? For example, do they put it under a complaint type? And from what I've been looking at, the complaint types, it only shows bike / roller / skate chronic. There's no indication that it's anything dealing with electric bikes. So how do we know what the 311 representative sees? Do they have their own categories, and then it gets somehow query into the data sets, or do they actually see the same categories that is on the open data 311 data sets?
So do you want to answer that, Anesh?
Go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So the 311 operator is only entering in what the person tells them, right? And so the 311 operator may not be told all of the information. And so that might be a reason why the data isn't there. That's the first thing to consider. The second thing is some, like depending upon, particularly in 311, it's purely reflective of who is submitting the 301 request. And so it's conditional. That's some of the difficulty that we have with 301 in general, is that it's really reflective on the literacy and the language of the person who is submitting the service request or the complaint, and the person who's taking it in.
In addition to that, we do have, I don't know if you guys are aware, but there is a 301 app, a mobile app that you can use. And if you would like to see how the complaint types and descriptors are displayed, you can definitely check that out. And just from using the app, what you can see is as a possibility happening is that sometimes you might not, whoever is reporting the incident may not necessarily go into in depth to look for a specific complaint type or specific descriptor. Maybe they're in a hurry, and sometimes information is lost that way. Just something to know.
No,
Alright,
I
so-
understand that. Just sorry, if I may.
Go ahead.
Just say one more thing. That's perfectly clear. But if somebody says specifically there's an issue with electric bikes, there's nothing on the data sets. So how are they even not know that it's an electric bike, and they put it in as a scooter, a regular bike complaints that there is no category for electric bikes? Well, is it better to just keep writing notes to the data sets and to please add subcategories or separate them? Because if things doesn't deal with skate chronic, why is it being put there and not as a specific its own category for just electric bikes, or even street or sidewalk? They have that column together. I mean, sometimes issues happen on the sidewalk, not on the street, but they're all put together. How does one distinguish what the incident where it happened?
Yeah, so we would definitely suggest you contact MODA to add additional more in-depth buckets that they can put the complaint type and the complaint descriptor, because essentially 311 has specific buckets where they would put these complaints, and also sometimes 311 actually changes it. I remember doing a project with Bernedge when they changed homeless encampments to I think homeless complaints instead, or something like that, because of a shift of policy or a shift of agency, which responds to these requests. And if you're looking at scooter data sets, what I would suggest you to do is look at, I think NYPD has violations, and then you can see, I think, a lot more better of if there's an e-bike on a road, or I think an e-bike on bike lane, a moped on bike lanes or something like that. Those are, I think, a lot more useful data sets than 311, because most of the times people don't know to actually complain 311 about those scooters or e-bike complaints. Does it answer your question?
Well, not entirely, but I have written to the where you made where you write a note to open data, and I have not received any response.
Yes, so I think we'll follow up with MODA on that specific question then, so we can kind of hammer them to do more on that issue.
I'm sorry, we were muted. Sorry,
Yeah,
we were talking and you couldn't see our mouths move.
Yeah, no, Luis, we can follow up on that issue. It may be a difficulty 311 has a database that's supposed to interface with agency databases. Because technology is considered a capital investment, some of these systems don't get updated in an agile manner. And so there may be something that's hard-coded into the database that can't be easily changed, and that the agency calls it one thing versus another, and it's, you know, it's a laborious process to change. If you follow up with us afterward, we can pass it along to our friends at 311.
Thank you.
Casey, I see your hand raised. Is that just still raised from before?
Sorry
Yes,
about that.
yes, I thought I removed it. Thank you.
No worries at all. Okay, so we'll start going into the Slido and answering questions in there. Yeah, so the first question is, in the 311 data set, in the location column, what do the values other and other explained below mean?
I think in the location, I will have to look up the 311 data.
So with 311, they try to give you as many location types as possible, but not every type of a location that where an incident might have occurred might have a good description. So usually other is, it's hard to define because it encompasses any other place that's not already listed. If you look at the 301 data set, you can, and you filter the location type column, you can see all the different location types that they do have, whether it's street, sidewalk, outside a building, outside a commercial establishment, a residential establishment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But not every location is going to fall under one of those headings. So the other is basically a catch-all for anything that cannot be described as one of the other location types.
And I think the location other described below is actually a field in their database where they have a free text field that they're not sharing with the general public, because I don't see the other description, location other description.
Okay. Text is not available. The inputted text is not available.
Great. So a question from Sebastian. The city publishes federal demographic data in a usable and visually appealing way. What about city data, for example, on sexual orientation and gender identity? Do you want to chime in there about demographics data?
I'm not sure particularly that the city provides like data for the full demographic of New York City. I know they provide that like city data demographic for the various different programs, like school programs or DYCD programs. So yeah, I've never heard of the city releasing like a all-encompassing citywide demographic on those demographic informations.
Wouldn't that fall under like census data and then just filtering out this other?
Well, yeah, census data doesn't contain like the more in-depth like sexual orientation and gender identification. If you're thinking about like using NYC as an intermediate, I don't think that is like open data per se, because I think the city wants to really safeguard that information, or like immigrant status. That's a bit harder.
So this is Sebastian here. The city is, and this is what I sort of alluded to when I did my greeting. The city is mandated to do. It's the law that they have to. A wide variety of city agencies have to collect these data. So not just on sexual orientation and gender identity, but on other demographics that don't necessarily or aren't necessarily collected by the feds. And so the data exists. It's just fishing it out. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of data points, and fishing them out one by one is a little hard. So I was wondering how, basically, obviously, the question is the city doesn't do this in a visually appealing way, but how can we as policymakers and advocates access this data so we can use it? It's very hard at this point to do that.
Yeah. I think city agencies are up to that, like their own devices. I know that the school, Department of Education does a pretty good data portal on various demographics they collect. Yeah, that's the only agency I know of, and I can share the link in the chat to their school dashboard where it shows you various breakdowns of a lot of demographic information.
It doesn't. Let me just sort of break this down a little more. Just to be quite honest, this administration isn't so hasn't done the best job in doing this and rolling this out. That's why you don't know about it. And so that's the challenge that we're trying to overcome. We know the data points exist. And so my question is really, how do we as policymakers and advocates extract it from the massive source that is open data? How do we get that out? And something that's not going to take 200 years to extract and then reassemble. Is there a way to navigate open data to get that data, get at that data? Because the city's.
Yeah, Sebastian, the question is then, is there a report that the city produces? Like if there's a paper report that's like a synthesized version, then the data underlying to that could be lobbied to be made into an open data portal, into an open data report. Otherwise, the other kind of like demographic information that we know of is census data, and census data only was it the most recent census that started diversifying different types of demographics. I hear you and the frustration that the mayoral administration isn't sharing the data that it should be doing, and that we can follow up afterward to figure out like what are the levers to essentially demand for that data to be published in a machine readable format based upon a report. We can also look around at different census tools. One easy to use census tool that we use is data2go.nyc. This is produced by Measure of America. I'll throw it into the chat here. But if you don't see it there, it sounds like there needs to be follow-up on it.
Right. So I guess so it would not, I don't know, when you say census, you're referring to the US Census. The US Census would not have this data. And that's why we're doing it as a city to sort of take the lead on this. But I think my question is larger. Let me frame it so it can help a lot more people. Is there demographic data, other types of data, anything really? Is there a way for us to extract raw data and make it into a usable format without spending hundreds, if not thousands of hours doing this, because it's very tedious and it would be very hard for, is there a way to do this on, not just on this data, these data sets, but on anything really?
Well, I mean, that's a,
tech literacy.
That is a very big question. And, if there are demographic data hidden in the open data portal that isn't well documented, like, that's kind of like a fishing expedition that you have to go on. We have a service that we provide called RADARs, which is Research and Data Assistance Requests, RADARs, which essentially helps, policymakers, civic organizations who are having difficulty finding data, find that data in the open data portal or where those different reports are. If you find data that needs to be scraped, that's exactly what a radar does. That's like what we have Onej hired to do. And so, there's no simple answer to a very complex question, which is how do you extract, complex demographic data from thousands of data sets easily? That's what, that's essentially why we're here. And that's what we try to help find out. But we can help make that process easier by having a follow-up conversation. Submit a radar, and we can start diving into, where does that data exist and how do we make that pipeline simpler for you to access. So.
Yeah, and just quickly, because you mentioned all data sets, the Open Data Portal has a pretty like basic visualization software. We're not the fondest of it, but Socrata does show you how to, or you can use Socrata on the Open Data Portal to create some basic visualizations. More advanced visualizations, you know, we do a mapping class and some other open data classes that teach people how to do open data, to how to create visualizations and do some basic analysis. And then we teach fellows, and hopefully as, you know, time progresses and more people are getting data literacy classes, more people will know how to make visualizations really quickly. There is a lot of software out there, Tableau, there's like Mapping Cardo, Mapbox, like all types of mapping softwares and chart software. And yeah, but yeah, as Noel said, we're totally happy to continue the conversation.
Yeah, Kate, I also think it would be beneficial to show how to get to the visualization portion. Just click on, I think, daily inmates in custody. And then we can probably just click on the visualize button and like really create like it'll automatically maybe help you create a really fast chart on it. So yeah, you just have to select the dimensions. So I guess these are the count of inmates and when they are accepted, and then there are also demographic informations. So I think we want to, yeah, that's just a bar chart of all the ages. But yeah, you can just really quickly play around with these columns with, I think in one of our classes, we teach you how to use this tool where you can kind of roll this data in a certain way to figure out all the various metrics you might want to find. And then from there, you can share this visualization out. Either you can print it out, save it as a PDF, or you can actually, I think, share this link with other folks and they will have the same visualizations, and they can also just switch out the filters and get up-to-date information.
So if we do a quick filter of like the race of inmates from the beginning of the year to today, for instance, does that help a little bit? Pie chart, but we don't really like pie charts.
Also, just to note, you can also sign into the Open Data Portal, and you can save these visualizations and these like an individual analysis that you do, so you can always come back to it later. So it's not something that you have to like redo every time. You can actually like save it to your account and come back to it. Even if you're dealing with like a data set and you're trying to like filter out the raw data, you can like save a copy of that raw data in your account to work on later. Just something to think about.
Thank you for that. That's very helpful. And sorry, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I want to piggyback on a question that was asked previously about the other category. And I don't know if people have found this, but the software or whatever they use to read other responses is especially when people are filling out forms, whether it's demographic or something else, is not very good. It's pretty terrible. It's basically not able to read other responses. So is there a way, short of a FOIL, to access the raw data if we really want to see those other responses that are not published or not effectively published? Is there a way to do that?
I don't think so. I think everyone really wants to protect the data privacy, because some of these responses have really in-depth descriptors. So I don't think it's possible. You can try doing a FOIL and try to get those columns, because that column might be less sensitive, but yeah, the overall raw data set might be really hard to get.
Thank you. Thank you for the question and for the answer, Z. So we have another question, which may have been answered, or so it's about bike complaints.
Yeah, I think that was answered.
Yeah. I think as micromobility sort of takes its or starts to become more prevalent around the city, there's definitely some data things to be talked about. I know developing like data standards for sharing information about these different modes of transportation it's going to be a topic of conversation. We're certainly interested in it. Were there any other questions about this topic? Cool. Are personal names or information included in any open data sets? I believe no.
Well, it depends upon what the data set is. So if it's an administrative data set, so like property records or certifications, that data is in the, it can be listed, but there are some data sets that don't have that information. Like wedding records right now, I got married this year, and I was like, oh, I want to see if there's a wedding registry in the city. No, that's actually part of the city clerk's office, and that's not necessarily open data. So it depends. Sometimes you see personal names, or you see what's called personal identifiable information listed in agency data sets that aren't reflected on the open data portal. So that particularly is like buildings violations data. You can see that there's a violation, and that's listed on the open data portal. And then you have to go to the agency Department of Building site. And then on the Department of Building site, you can find that violation, and there you'll find more information. So
I think this is also a segue to the other question about city employees. So there is a data set with city employee names of if they have a title or not. And I think there's also a public data set on how much salary does city employees get.
Yes, that is available.
Awesome information. So next question is, where is the best place to find increases in homelessness in specific neighborhoods over a certain period of time? Homeless data sets. Do you know the answer to that question?
Yep. So 311 is not fairly reliable, but a lot of people report homeless issues in 311. The next best data set to probably get is Department of Homeless Services releases, I think, the daily intake, and also breakdown of categories of like if it's a family intake, if it's a single male, a single female. So yeah, you should probably go to that data set there by going to the agency. I'm sorry for the background noise. Yeah, the DHS daily report. And also, I think if you ask the DHS, they can also give you the homeless count that they do every single January. So that might be a somewhat useful data set, but it's not as, I guess, frequent as this daily intake one. And Kate, I think you want to switch that over to the time. I think it's the one with the line underneath it, the time series, not the histogram. Yeah, the timeline chart. There you go. And you might want to filter it down so you can see stuff like more in depth.
Is there a time frame anybody was interested in? We also don't have location here, but I guess you could do by at a hierarchy. What do they call it?
And just note, this data set is not very in depth, so it won't tell you like what specific shelter has a lot of like the amount of homeless people per shelter. It won't tell you like a lot of information about the hotel shelters. I know they're being phased out, but yeah, it's not very helpful. So a FOIL request might be the most useful. I think on their website they also release PDFs, which is not very accessible, but that might give you more in-depth information.
Okay, yeah, I'm also wondering, I don't see geographic data? Is there, what field would be geographic?
It may not be listed.
Yeah.
Oh, I already have it, my bad. There was a little troubled by Zia's response. Would you clarify, did you say sexual orientation data, like immigration data, should not be asked?
Sorry, I think that was more pertained to the analysis of the NYC ID data, because the city does collect information on that, but they don't release that anywhere. Yeah, just sorry if that made you kind of confused. But yeah, definitely like city agencies should collect data on that so they can provide the equitable service to all those of all abilities or sexual orientations or immigrant status.
Yeah, the city also has a pretty elaborate process of reviewing what data is collected, and so some of the situations we've been in, just to kind of like paint a broader picture, is that it's like if the question doesn't need to be asked for the service that's being rendered, it may not be asked. And so the city is very concerned about what data it might be forced to share up the food chain, and therefore kind of disclose vulnerable populations in ways that it want to. So.
Kate, here's, you got to fix it. So the dimension is, I think, the date of the census. Yeah. And then measure is that measure. And then I think, yeah, there you go. Awesome.
So if you want to learn how to use this visualization, we have classes that we'll be offering, which are part of our standard package of open data classes later on in the fall. MODA also has a number of tutorials on the open data portal, which teach you how to use these classes, how to use these tools. So Z, do you want to talk about that visualization real quickly?
I'm not sure I know the context of what's going on, but yeah, Kate, if you can go back to.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it quickly too. So we just filtered down to March 1st, to a time range between March 1st, 2020, the start of the pandemic, to August, well, I guess we said, yeah, so it's a monthly, to yesterday. And so you can see that there's a range between, what is this number today, 600K measured. I wonder, is that because it's not totally measured? We're only halfway through the month?
Well, yeah, it might be, but yeah, it also might be that, yeah, the data is not conclusive, but yeah, these would be like, once you get the data set, some questions that you might have would be best answered by looking at the metadata of how this data gets like updated or recorded. So if you go back to the main page on this, I don't want to like ruin this visualization, but if you go back onto the main page, there's a metadata file you can pull up, and I'll show you how that data is collected, how often it's updated again. So in this case, this data was last updated on the 16th, so that was yesterday. And then there's this metadata file in the attachments area. And reading that will give you more context. But when publishing or using any of this data, you should double check with the agency or MODA on the context of how stuff is collected, because we know that COVID data is usually delayed. So this data might also be delayed. But yeah, as Kate said, this was in August, there's only half a month of data. So we had to wait for the rest of the month for those numbers to pop back up.
Yes, you can download that. Well, we lost it, but it looked like, there was a spike to around 2.6 million, right? And then it was a trend downward till August.
Yeah, the spike was between July and October last year.
Okay. In your opinion, what do you recommend city agencies can do to make the data they share as reliable as possible?
So yeah, going back to the metadata is really important. Kate, can you actually share that Excel file? That Excel file will explain a lot of the context of how data is collected. I think each city agency, at least each large city agency, has their own open data coordinator, which kind of makes those sheets and also is the main contact person for MODA. So it usually is MODA, the open data coordinator at that agency, and then that open data coordinator with other folks in the agency. So yeah, just by contacting MODA or the city agency, you can get much more in-depth information about how the data is collected, so you don't really like misinterpret the numbers in a certain way. So there's always these questions. So Kate, can you go back to the first sheet? So in a detailed description, you can see why is this data collected, how is this data collected, and what does each record represent. Those are really good descriptors of what things you should keep in mind when using this data set.
Basically follow MODA's directions in a way, and make sure the open data coordinator is keeping people accountable within the agency to report, to publish data, publish it correctly.
Yeah, and the next sheet will show you what the column names also mean. So if you have any like confusion about what the columns names means, you can also go to that one.
Cool. And then revision history as well, which this one has no update here.
So we had a question pop in the chat about getting a data set on rats and rodents. So tier 1 is often not really reliable again, but it's probably the best data set we have. We know that Department of Health and Mental Hygiene does restaurant inspections, but I think they have only started taking doing inspections again, I think the beginning of this month or whatnot. So those are probably the two best data sets to kind of get information about rodents, but again, the other one is not very reliable, and you can always hide rats in your restaurant from the Department of Health, from the health inspections of restaurants.
The rat. There's also a rat sighting. Well, I guess that's from the 311 request, right? Rat sighting data set.
Well, there's RIP, which used to exist, which was the rodent information portal.
Okay.
Rodent information portal.
And then there's the rodent inspection.
The RIP rat information portal is down as of January 8th of last year. They must have had more important things to do.
Were they working?
Yeah,
with
yeah, it's because they stopped restaurant inspections, I think, yeah, during COVID, and they only started ramping that up recently. So yeah, as soon as Department of Health and Mental Hygiene start ramping up inspections, I think that portal will probably go back up again.
But also that new initiative, folks teaching teaching communities about garbage cans to like reduce rats. Anyone know what I'm talking about?
No.
There's a group of people that are going around teaching people about rats and like hygiene and street hygiene and sort of health safety. I'll try to find what I'm talking about. All right, other questions. We have some basic questions I think that they're more commonly asked questions, so these aren't from anybody in the room, but so if you have a question, please. Yes, the rat training, Isabel. The Department of Health Rat Academy trainings. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So what type of data does 311 have, and where can I find a data set about building owners? If these are questions that are interesting to you all, we will happily answer them. Otherwise, if you have questions that you are waiting to ask, feel free to ask.
Okay, I want to just pop in again with the rat complaint stuff. We have this wonderful tool called BoardStat, which allows you to visualize all the rat complaints in a specific community board or a specific borough. So yeah, can you just really just go over, do you want me to talk you through using BoardStat, Kate, or do you want to narrate yourself?
If you have specific steps you want to show, I I don't know, does anybody else want to talk me through it? Who wants to choose a borough?
Anej, go ahead.
No, because you're going.
Data's loading, internet connection. Anybody have a community board that, in the room that, is anybody from Queens in here? Let's see, who's here?
Well, we can do the full.
All right,
We have CP12.
and 5? Okay. Awesome, okay. So
And then we want to filter down the date range and then, also the complaint type.
All right, so there was.
So I think it's rat and rodent.
Rat and rodent. Oh, not. Oh,
It might be like citing maybe. And you're probably better than with me than this.
I mean, I think it's just not scrolling past the G. The way we have this all set up, if you can't tell, is we have right now we're using phone for audio, the owl for the video, and then we all have multiple screens and then a big TV. But it's not go down to rat, so it's not going past G.
Yeah, it's not going past G, so I'm like.
Let's just try refreshing, I think. Yeah, Z, for some reason, it's not going past.
Maybe go in the descriptor, because rat rodent might be a descriptor of the one.
It's not going past D.
Okay. Yeah, it might be that word set slow. Try Manhattan. That might work better. And
Oof.
Power BI.com.
Here, we're just gonna select all. Something is not right. Well. It seems like
yeah,
there's a
all right.
filter on thing.
Yeah, live demos aren't the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we were gonna show you, you can analyze by community district, and the 311 request. So you'd be able to see a breakdown of, for instance, like here, we can do something for that, something that we can click. Let's do, complaint. Derelict vehicle. Curb condition. And we'll do. And we'll just do all. And now you click down here. The curb condition reports in Manhattan. So you can see there's a lot. So when we see that there's a lot, you either zoom in to see if it sort of helps you narrow in on some things that you want to look at, or if it's still a lot, you could create a even narrower date range or filter. Oh yeah, smart call.
And for some reason, okay. Same problem. All right, because it's showing up on my computer, so.
Yeah, interesting. Is there another complaint type that someone wants to volunteer us to look at in a specific district? Dumping. Before. Then. Really not. I'm going to search for, is it tree condition and then the descriptor, something?
I don't think dumping.
Do you know the complaint type that dumping is? Is it dumping or is it another? While
It's
we're
probably like
finding that
illegal.
illegal something, okay.
Mhm.
I'm gonna check out homelessness in CB6. CB6, Manhattan, is that right, Tanya? Queens, okay, so we have to go.
I was muted. Queens, CB6 in Queens.
Okay, so we go back to boards at home, we go to Queens.
And I think it would be helpful just to talk through like how we do the filter. So on separated by boroughs, so you click on Queens, and then you go down the drop down, select community board 6, and then you can then filter by complaint type. On the left side, there are different tabs you can click on. So first of all, let's just click on explore the map. I think it might be broken on the main page of filtering. So if you go and explore the map, you can filter down your complaint type first. So we're doing illegal dumping, right? Or what was that, homeless complaints?
We're
I think
actually
we're
gonna look at,
doing homeless, right? Are we doing
Yeah.
illegal? Okay.
we were beginning to look at homelessness, but it looks like for some things we can access, but some things a little.
Yeah, I think the back end has like all the data sets since like 2010, so it might be overloaded. So we got to check on that. But yeah, if there's an issue, just filter down the date range.
Yeah, is there a specific date range that you're interested in looking at?
Can you do the last year?
And then you can also hover on the bubbles. So there's obviously a lot of hotspots, but if you hover over the bubbles, it will show you a breakdown of like the various types. So I think we selected 3 types. So homeless assistant, homeless street condition, and homeless encampment. So each of those colors represent something different.
Okay. What do the first 2 represent? Homeless encampment I get, but you mentioned 2 other categories?
Homeless person
Homeless
assistance.
person assistance, homeless encampment, and homeless street condition. Homeless encampment, I believe, has been taken off, but the records are still there. They have switched it out for homeless street condition, I believe.
So yeah, so it looks like homeless street condition is the NYPD responds to those. And then homeless person assistance is DHS. And then,
You won't find encampment because they took that off
okay,
last year.
so it's just 2 now. And then I think probably then view trends. And so you can see there was a little gap. I wonder what that's about. But in the past year, you can see the trend, and I guess between August and April.
So that's showing a spike. It looks like there's a spike there. Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, there's a spike in complaints, and there's also yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so the complaints are to the right. There's like a flat line and then there's something that looks like a tent. So the tent is complaints.
Yes, the tens, the one that's the tens are from 2020 and the flat line is from 2021.
Yeah, so right here up at the top, you can see blue is 2020. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's displaying a little wonky.
We have some back-end stuff too. It looks like we made some updates and then didn't tweak them, finalize them. But normally the colors would represent different years. Here, we could actually maybe, so look at it this way. I still think.
You're seeing the end, you're seeing essentially the end of one.
Yeah.
This is
the
end of the year.
yeah, and
The beginning of another.
so in August, Wait, which complaint type and descriptor are you using?
Homeless.
But it hasn't synchronized.
Oh, it hasn't actually synchronized.
And the data that you're pulling from, is that from the DHS or from 311 or NYPD or all three?
This is only 311 data.
Okay.
Yes, so this is just the 311 data set.
So is this monthly? I'm not sure what I'm looking at.
This is for 2021, just for this month so far.
So I've just updated it again to show, the timeline's really looking a little funny, so that's something we seem to flag. So for some reason, the timeline is not showing,
Can you just hover over the gray for me, please?
yeah. So this is April 2021. This is, August 2020. We don't know why it's not showing us August 2021.
The data may not be in there. I'm looking at the data right now.
Okay. So yeah, normally you would be able to quickly view this in a range. We could also do this, yeah, on the portal. But it looks like the data wasn't updated since April. All right,
And
illegal.
I'm sorry, and just to be clear, board stat is separate from?
Yeah, so BoardStat was a tool created with community boards years ago. So it's a BetaNYC tool in beta version. We're always updating it as we find ways to make it better. But it was created for and with community boards to help them look at 311 requests in their districts and create different views that they wanted to see, so that they wanted to view. And we created these different views so that they could view them how they wanted.
And to access this is boardstat.com, or what's the link?
Yeah, sure. I will throw it in the. It's just boardstat.beta.nyc.
And then as Kate before said, like if there's any issues with this tool, please contact us. And also you can use the open data platform to run a similar filter and then also visualize it in a certain way with the tools that we've shown you before. So yeah, this tool is interchangeable with the 301 data set. And this tool just has like a bunch of more visualizations that are preset, so you don't have to kind of click through those windows yourself.
Thank you.
So you would just go to this data set and you can filter down and export the data that you want. And if you wanted to visualize something, if you have somebody on staff that knows how to create a chart or a map, if you have like a report you're trying to make, you could have them create that. If you need help, you could ask us for help or show you how to do that.
My network connection just ended.
Yeah, mine too.
How's my network connection? Can people hear me all right? I was just told that our network. Okay.
Can you see us?
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
I guess I'm taking up the most. It's not doing that thing where this video takes, and we should just be mindful of time. It's 1:30. So this video is interesting because if you've noticed, it catches who's moving and talking. Okay, so I think we're out of time. If you have a specific data analysis chart or issue that you want to explore with us, please don't hesitate to use the beta.nyc radar service that we have. This is the way that we help you, and also we help our civic innovation fellows and apprentices and our staff, our lab, learn and practice the skills that they're learning as civic analysts in the program to support the city. So use it. If you have other questions, come back next week. If you know staff members who have questions, tell them about the session for next week. If you wanted to do any sort of one-on-one walking through the portal, I think Casey, it was you that asked about that. If you would like to do that, or if anyone would like to, we can update next week's time to maybe like have some very scheduled time at the end to walk through a few issues. If you email me the issues that you want to look at specifically, I'll choose like 3 of them, or however many come in, we'll evaluate and see what we can do. We can schedule some time at the end of next week's session to walk people through, because I'm sure it would be helpful for everybody. So yeah, I guess, thank you for joining us. What other, let's see, quick announcements, I guess. We have an event next week, and we would love for you to attend on Monday. It's do you want to give a brief introduction, Noel?
Yeah, so part of the work that we've done is around trying to figure out, like, what does the future look like? We all love the future, right? Because we all know what's going to happen on January 1. And so in the lead up to what the future might be, we are having a series of conversations around how technology, data, and service design process can help influence. I think the Wi-Fi just completely died, and we still have the audio though. We have an event with the public advocate, the borough president, Manhattan Community Board district manager, and the founder of one of the mutual aid groups and Mayday Space to talk about kind of like what are the service design opportunities, what are the problems that we're seeing, and how does technology kind of like intersect with solving civic problems. And so it's going to be a really interesting conversation that's going to help kick off a whole series of listening conversations that we're putting together called the People's Tech Assemblies. So if you want to understand or kind of like suggest how tech can help influence kind of, you know, future policy, this is the place to come and suggest or at least learn about it more. My talking points are better stated once I have them written out. But it should be a fun conversation with the public advocate, the Manhattan Borough President, Sandy Nurse from Bushwick, and Lucian Reynolds, who's the Community Board District Manager for CB1. And my network connectivity is now back.
Yeah, and just to add on, we are interested in reaching as many New Yorkers as we can to talk about the intersection of government and technology, and how the government should be using technology and doing things like abiding by MODA's data standards, and how we can, you know, improve things in the city through technology without, you know, compromising people's health, safety, privacy, everything. So if we are going to be reaching out most likely in the next few weeks to see who would like to hold a listening session in their district. It's a chance for the public to come and share their issues, concerns, and their ideas for how technology should be used. And we're looking forward to having people that know nothing about technology to people who are experts. So so just stay tuned for that message, and hopefully so the event date is Monday. The launch event is Monday at 2 o'clock, and you can register for it here. And then we will be following up with you to schedule listening sessions, which will be about an hour and a half long. And we would love to work with your events or community liaisons at your offices to hold a listening session in your district this fall. So we'll follow up with that information. And if you have any questions, Kate at beta.nyc is my email address, and I can help you answer your questions. Other than that, does anyone have any final thoughts, questions, comments? Feel free to come off mute, and you're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And sorry for going over a little bit, and for this internet. We're based out of Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer's office, and we're lucky to have this space. And so this is the first time we've done an event with this OWL and with a sort of virtual in-person setup. So thank you so much for bearing with us, and and we're glad that you got your questions answered, and we look forward to more questions. Have a great time. I'm going to stop recording and stop sharing and